What's up, guys? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm your host, Robert Durden, and this episode is going to be about Israel and Palestine, and I'm going to do at least one more episode on something different in Israel and Palestine later today. It is the thing that's most prominent in the news right now, so I'm going to keep covering it. First, a shout out to the artist who sent me these, the Tupac and the Iron Giant paintings. They're awesome. Her name is Kagan Masters. She's a friend of my wife's. You can follow her on Instagram at Kagan Masters, Kagan Masters, all one word, because these are dope as fuck. Anyway, let's talk about Netanyahu and the Israelis. So this first episode is going to be about something I read on Mint Press News, which is something I knew before, but I did some more digging, and this is a newer article going over something they already reported on. So basically, we know now that the Israeli Ministry of Justice, they have like a cyber unit or a cyber technical unit that is supposed to be for, defending them against cyber attacks. But what we've been finding out is that there's evidence that they are in fact doing voluntary takedowns on social media content. So what that means is they go on as an entity and they take down anything that basically has the word Palestine in the headline, but particularly stuff that paints what the Israelis are doing in a poor light, and they do it under the guise of, and I'm saying almost verbatim, anything that can incite Palestinian violence should be flagged, and they flag everything and report everything on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter like crazy, and then a lot of these things get taken down or suspended until these tech giants get back to either reinstating them or upholding the ban or the block. So that's what the Israeli Defense Ministry is doing, and it's crazy because if you guys noticed, a lot of the Palestinian journalists and a lot of the stuff that has been coming out over the last couple of days that's pro-Palestinian will like often disappear or get flagged, or the people that are posting them are getting reported, right? That's largely due to the cyber unit of the Israeli Defense Ministry or Department of Justice or whatever they have it. So I want to read to you from Nadim Nashif. He's the founder of and CEO of 7amle, which is it's a pro-Palestinian site. Said the digital rights organization had received approximately 200 cases of social media censorship related to the recent events in Palestine. However, he believes the actual number could be well into the thousands, as many users experiencing censorship may not have reported it. Quote, actually 99% of our content removal appeals to social media companies were put back with no questions asked. And this is clearly because these posts did not violate their community standards, Nashif told Mint Press News. What's basically happening is the Israeli cyber unit is abusing the system of so-called voluntary takedown, end quote. When we reached for comment, a Twitter spokesperson said our automated systems took enforcement action on a small number of accounts in error by an automated spam filter, end quote. So they're admitting they did take them down. They're saying it was an error in their filters. We are expeditiously reversing this action to reinstate access to all the affected accounts, some of which have already been reinstated, Twitter said. Facebook, which owns Instagram, responded to requests for comment to Mint Press by issuing a statement that reads in part, quote, we know there have been several issues that have impacted people's ability to share on our apps, including a technical bug that affected stories around the world and an error which temporarily restricted content from being viewed on Al-Aqsa Mosque hashtag page. So, and for a while, Sheikh Jarrah and Al-Aqsa Mosque and East Jerusalem hashtags, they were not available at all on Instagram. They were completely censored. So they admitted it to you there. They did censor, and then they're obviously claiming that there was an error. And that's not what this is about, although I will bring it full circle to why I believe that these tech giants shouldn't even be involved in this stuff, because it should be regulated as a public utility. A lot of these social media sites are what the telephone used to be, and you wouldn't want people telling you what to say and what you can't say on the telephone. These should be utilities so we can make sure our First Amendment rights are sustained. So that's neither here nor there. I'm going to bring it back to that, but I want to read to you guys here. 7amle, which is Nassif, he is the CEO of that. The Israeli Minister of Justice, Ayelet Shaked, stated that Facebook, Google, and YouTube are complying with up to 95% of Israel's requests to delete content that the Israeli government says incites Palestinian violence. This shows a significant focus on Palestinian content and efforts to label Palestinian political speech as incitement to violence. So that's what they're doing. They just say that everything that could possibly incite Palestinian violence should be flagged, reported, and taken down. And that's how they're censoring. It's bananas, but not at all surprising, and a lot of this is due to just the Israeli government is censoring Palestinians on social media. That's all that's happening in a nutshell. And like I said, guys, this, if it was an error in the filters or whatever on Twitter, I don't know much about that stuff, but we've already documented that we know that the cyber unit has done this before. I think it's safe to say that they're doing a lot of the suppression right now of Palestinian content, pro-Palestinian content. So, let's just nip this in the bud. It is absolutely a First Amendment issue. You can't censor people for no reason other than it simply might incite Palestinian violence, and then just, a lot of these things, they're finding out, like I said, they don't actually incite violence at all. They have Palestine in the headline, or they could be construed as possibly inciting violence when that hasn't been proven at all. You can't just censor people for nothing. That's what's going on here. So another reason why it would be best if we just take these social media platforms out of the hands of these tech giants, regulate them as social utilities, because then everybody's free speech is maintained, including Donald Trump's, who I have said steadfastly I'm against his Twitter ban. I think he should be allowed back on, Twitter. And unless you do something like a direct threat of violence, I don't see any reason to suppress anybody's speech ever. So if you were to just not allow Twitter and Facebook and all of them to decide what's best for us to say online and what is censorable and what's not, regulate this as a public utility, that would erase a lot of problems like this. Because obviously this is just private companies who are in the pockets of or working with Israel, allowing pro-Palestine content to be taken down, at least for the time being. And then they go, whoopsie, and then they reel it back in and they fix it, but by then maybe it's a week later and the story's already passed. They suppress it while the story's hot, and that's when it's most important for this stuff to get out and go and spread as quickly as possible. If you suppress it for a week or two and then give those people their accounts back, the story's passed. So it's just as effective at censoring as banning them forever sometimes. So don't allow them to do this. The private companies don't need to be involved in what we say and do online. Take it away from them. Let's make it a public utility. I want every social media to be regulated and, available for everybody, so long as they're not actually advocating direct threats of violence. We have a Constitution. First Amendment allows us to do so. This is against that. And it's partially the tech giants' fault, but it's just mostly just, the system's fault, and is Israel's fault because they have enough money to bribe people in our society to allow them to do stuff like this. And obviously there wouldn't be such thing as a voluntary takedown on social media if they were regulated like public utilities, unless of course we obviously can see that people are making public direct threats of violence, in which case they get flagged and they go down too. But stuff like this where people just get arbitrarily taken down because there's a lot of flagging on it without it being checked first would never happen. So it's an argument for, the First Amendment, but it's also an argument for take our First Amendment rights out of the hands of these tech giants. They don't know what to do. And of course, until we do so, you're going to see pro-Palestinian content getting, censored left and right. And they might put it back up later. They might not. It's really in their hands. And as long as they're working with the Israelis and the Israeli cyber unit continues to basically dox everybody, what can we do? So keep fighting the good fight out there. The next episode I'm going to do is on how Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden are absolutely night and day on Israel-Palestine, and there's another example of that happened today. I'll talk to you guys later.